Yeah, they've got to catch the draft.
Ah. Oh, Daytona 500, first race is in the books, and wow.
Whoa.
William
Byron! Who? Byron! Who? Byron!
winning. Didn't have that one on my bingo card.
Or Jimmy Johnson being in third.
Well, that's just Daytona. I mean, it's like we said on the last episode, like anything can happen. It is a madhouse. It's good because it creates storylines, right? It like instantly gave you and I like an agenda of things we need to talk about. The fact that they did not push the damn caution button.
Watch your profanity.
At the end of the race. They let them race back. No consistency.
No.
Like any other time, they would have pressed that yellow and...
Byron! Who? Byron! Who? Byron!
But still won. It didn't affect the outcome of the race, but it outcomes who places second to 20th because people didn't make it across the line. So, what are we doing here? Like, just because people got mad at you and because you gave Cindric the win? I mean, granted, I was up in arms about that. They should not have pressed that caution button at the end of that race. So, I believe they did the right thing here. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying I do think they did the right thing by not hitting the caution light, but it's just have some consistency.
It's true. That is one of people's biggest complaints with NASCAR is the inconsistencies.
You can never make enough rules. You can go down the rabbit hole of situations that are going to happen. Some things you do have to officiate on the fly, but ending the race on a caution has been around for as long as I can remember. What's the rule? Are you going to press the caution light or are you not?
Bottom line, are you in or are you out?
Be consistent, NASCAR, please, and thank you. But also, like, I feel like the on-track product is suffering. So it's like, what do you want? Do you want a more quality product, or do you want more storylines? Is kind of the balance that I've been seeing lately at like Daytona and Talladega, and I'm not sure that I like it.
Yeah, I don't know that I so much like that Daytona is about luck. We're trying to make the sport more competitive and exciting. I don't know that a luck factor is doing that. I certainly wasn't super impressed with tonight's race. I don't like that style of racing. That is just like big field wrecks. Some people get really amped up by that and they really enjoy that. I think Daytona in the past has been really exciting. And I've really enjoyed watching Daytona races. Maybe it's just tonight's race was just not it for me. It's right place, right time, or wrong place, wrong time.
Right. You can be the most skilled driver in the field. I mean, you talk about Kyle Larson is widely known as one of the best drivers in the world. And the dude can't even score like a top 15 at Daytona because there's just no skill involved anymore.
That's pretty disappointing that a driver like him just can't perform at Daytona.
That's why I kind of hate the first 2 weeks of the series with Daytona and then going right to Atlanta, another drafting track right after the back. It's like these first 2 weeks, it's just like, all right, who's going to get lucky? And then we get into the races of, okay, let's see who the actual contenders are going to be. I'm not trying to discredit William.
Byron! Who? Byron! Who? Byron!
Too much. Like, he was up front many times. He had a good car. Did he have the best car? No. But he was able to keep himself out of trouble. He shouldn't have won because he was way back and he just happened to be the first one out of the wreck. But good on him for getting through it and being up front and in the place to win.
And he acknowledged that in some way too in his interview with Jamie Little, like pointing out that like he got really lucky. Definitely a picture perfect example of right place, right time.
Penske led just about half the race. It might not be quite that much, but it was pretty close to about half the race that was led by Penske. You really about to do it? What, like lap 170 something? Your driver of choice, Joey Logano, made quite the move.
Just bust the move.
To get into the position to win. Now, I personally think he could have been a little more patient, but I don't think it was a move that was like cheap or a bad move. I think he could have waited. But I really think that the whole thing was characterized by Stenhouse continuing to block. That's what I see. I mean, Logano, you see the flames coming out of the pipes. He's trying to back out. He can only back out so much because he's got the whole pack coming up behind him. And you know, I'm not trying to defend Logano, but I'm just saying here that it was really more of Stenhouse late blocking, which to me is almost as bad as a bad push. Push it to the limit. You know what I mean? Because the late blocks are what get people wrecked. It's late blocks and bad pushes. So unpack it for me, Kimmy. What did you see?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I'm a Logano fan, and I very much agree that he got impatient and he kind of jumped the gun. I think he could have waited, especially considering had a great start to his race, clearly had a really good car, and kind of seemed like he was done for the day, got back in position, and ultimately threw it away for himself.
There was no doubt that he was the car to beat. I mean, between getting the throttle body all messed up and then going a lap down and his crew fixing the throttle body in 80 seconds and then getting him back out there, marching his way up to get stage points and then replacing the airbox and then coming all the way back up again, like, you don't just do that in the next gen era. Like, that's unheard of. If you're getting in the back of the pack, I mean, yeah, you can come back up to the front, but it's because there's been wrecks. Like, you can't march your way back up like that.
That's like the magic of Daytona. You have the opportunity to be able to do that. And the fact that he had that opportunity, he was there, he was in position, there was still like 20 laps. That's plenty of time for you to wait for a better spot, wait for better timing. And he didn't. And he got impatient, went through, executed it. And I mean, I do agree, like Stenhouse with the hard block, and Logano was clearly out of the gas. And Stenhouse just kept pushing it and just wouldn't let up. And at that point, arguably, Stenhouse wasn't even blocking anymore. He was just pushing them down the track. I think if he would have just kept going, like make your block and keep going, but he would not let up. And at that point, Logano had nowhere to go. Put himself in a bad spot, but then there was nowhere for him to go. And you can watch the replays and see that he was kind of the monkey in the middle there. Where do you go? You get out of the gas, and he did that. I think at that point he did what he could do, and it was an unfortunate situation for a lot of people that, you know, was caused by impatience and bad blocking.
Yeah, I completely agree.
This is something that I know we've talked about before too, but if tonight's race was exciting for you, and you're sitting here saying, wow, that was a great race, and you might really enjoy bumper cars, that might more be for you. Because if you are saying that this was an exciting race, this was not true to the core racing. Nobody was racing at the end of the race tonight. It was all bumping and banging and bad pushing and wrecking out the field. I mean, look at the people who finished on the leaderboard. That tells you everything you have to know about tonight's race. So much talent was wiped out. I want to see people really going at it and racing for the lead, racing for position, not pushing each other out of the way and wrecking them for position. That's not racing to me. That's wrecking.
I feel like wrecks do add something, but I don't want to see it because of lack of talent, right? I want to see it as two guys going at it. Yes, I criticize Stenhouse for making the late block, and yes, I criticize Joey Logano for trying to go too quickly. But in the end, both guys are kind of pissed off, but they both said, like, in the end of it, it was a racing deal. And it was like two guys, they were going at it, and neither one of them wanted to give. They were stupid moves, but they're in the realm. It's very different than just, let's just steamroll everybody in front of us and see if they can get out of our way. Right, well, in the Ryan Preece wreck, that was just crazy. That was caused by the Cole Custer just steamrolling Christopher Bell. You think about it like a sail on a sailboat, and if there's holes in the sail, it doesn't go anywhere. But if you have a solid piece of canvas, that's what propels you. And that's exactly what's happening on the bottom of those cars.
I don't know that I would say it's quite like that, though. Because the whole reason for that solid piece underneath is so that air doesn't get up underneath the car.
The underbody is not for wreck prevention. The underbody is for stability of driving the car. And that's why the whole dirty air thing is so big right now. Because it's aerodynamic, it's acting as a vacuum to keep the car planted to have better handling. It's not a safety feature.
You can't say, though, that being there and then all of a sudden not anymore isn't also going to play a factor in the wreck.
In this specific one, I honestly believe that it does. Because if you look at the Corey LaJoie wreck from Michigan, it's just because when the cars get to that certain angle, you know, you're getting it up, and then it does. It just acts like a sailing, like a parachute, and over you go. I definitely do think that the front splitter being broken, I think it was a combination of the wind catching it not only from the bottom, but because there was only a little part that was broken. It's like pushing air through a big tube versus like a really small tube. It's more pressurized.
I don't think that helped the situation.
Certainly not. And it was a very odd situation where the two cars in front of him came at like a V and clipped him and got him up in a wheelie. So I mean, that rarely happens. You know, Clint Boyer kept going on and on about how he'd never seen a car wheelie before, and no, we haven't really. But I mean, just all I'm saying by this is that I hate the underbody. The car is too reliant on aerodynamics. Number two, I feel like it's a safety issue. So don't be surprised if there's a lot of talk around that underbody this year. I think it's just going to be amplified after Ryan Preece flipping again.
Well, cars are doing what apparently this design was meant for them to not do. We've seen cars go airborne. We've seen cars flip. And at least from my understanding, the point of the design of this car was so that it didn't do that. But we're still seeing that. And, you know, something NASCAR has to look at, something that's dangerous and is going to be concerning and shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't have cars getting that airborne and flipping that many times. I mean, the design was meant to be that didn't happen. Clearly, we need to go back to the drawing board here.
NASCAR was so focused on keeping the car on the ground, right, that they didn't think about the times when the car comes off the ground. This car took out Kurt Busch because the crashes were so hard. And, you know, it's one of those things that, yes, the chance of death in this car has gone way down. Like, it's obviously proven that it's gone way down, but drivers are more susceptible to concussions and other injuries because even though it might save their life, it's going to hurt in the meantime. It's kind of like the thing where, they say if somebody does CPR on you and breaks your ribs, you're thankful that they break your ribs and you're not dead.
In pushing hard and fast on the center of the chest.
There's also a lot of things in the cars that are keeping the driver safe now too. It also becomes a question of what's actually safer. Is it the car itself or the features on the inside that are keeping these drivers safe? And sure, maybe it's a little bit of both, but I'm at the point where I feel like the technology we have inside the car is keeping the driver safer than what the actual body of this car is.
I think you're spot on there because they have the Hans device, which has been around for years now. But I mean, if you look at the cockpit of the cars, like they are like almost totally encased in this seat, and it's good because it's preventing death. But they said when you're smacking your head back and forth against that hard foam, man, it's not a comfy thing.
Ride. If you've ever been on that roller coaster ride that have those head pieces on the side that, stabilize your head, but you're banging back and forth between each side, it's still not very comfortable.
I wanted to talk about overall Fox's production of the race today.
What does the fox say?
I don't hear the crowd at all on the broadcast anymore. And that is part of the reason why people say that NASCAR is boring. In NASCAR, nobody's going to NASCAR races because we never hear the crowd. You look back in the 2000s, even in the 2010s, and you would hear the crowd screaming when they were coming on that front stretch.
Pull it away!
Less than a mile to go.
Oh, we got a wreck.
Third generation star Dale Earnhardt Jr. brings him to the flag. Checkered flag waving. It's over.
You hear people screaming over everything. I have to give them a little bit of credit in the fact that they did the whole side-by-side thing like NBC did. So you didn't miss any green flag action, which I can appreciate. Coming like 5 to go at the end of the stage, they did like a clip of an interview they did, and they covered up the race. Like, why are you choosing to do that right at the end of the race? And then at one point, you texted me and you were like, "Oh, somebody pushed the wrong button."
Christopher Bell's pit crew. Yeah, I think Fox, questionable broadcasting. I think plenty of people have had issues with Fox in the past.
Well, they used to be the number one. Like, everybody loved Fox. But then in recent years, it's just kind of gone downhill. And then they lost some races with it going to Prime and TNT this summer. So everybody's like, oh, they're just pushing all their resources into IndyCar, which you can see by the commercials. Like, if you compare the IndyCar commercials to the NASCAR commercials on Fox, way different level, right? Yeah. And the one thing that really bothered me, and it's so small, but why are we cranking it up in the pits? Like, if I'm cranking it up, I want to hear them going by at 195 miles an hour. And I want to hear... That's what I want to hear on a crank it up. I don't want to hear...
Being a kid, growing up, and having the gopher cam, and it was really exciting and fun, and it's not what it used to be for sure. But yeah, and they've done this before. They've done the crank it ups in the pits before, and I would agree it's just not a very exciting place to do it. I mean, especially when you have Daytona where we're fast and 3 wide. Great opportunities for some good crank it ups there, and they decided to do it in the pits instead.
Well, and watching the Xfinity race yesterday, I really appreciated the CW's broadcast. They're new to it, but I actually liked very much the combo of Jamie McMurray and Parker Kligerman. Like, I thought they balanced driver knowledge, but also race analyst. Like, I thought they balanced it really well, and it was like professional, but they still were cracking jokes and stuff. Both of their voices are kind of annoying, but I'm not going to hold that against them, right? Because everything else about the broadcast I thought was very good. Whereas today, I know you have strong feelings on Kevin Harvick, but my strong feelings are on Clint Boyer. They've made Clint Boyer out to be just this completely, stupid idiot.
I'm on TV?
This isn't happening.
I'm not on TV.
He's not adding any value to me. All he's doing is dumbing down the broadcast. That's my biggest gripe with that. And Mike Joy, he's just old, and Chris Myers is old, and I love them. They're my childhood, but it's like watching all the rain delay interviews of Chris Myers, he just doesn't even want to be there.
I like Mike Joy. I have no qualms with Mike Joy. I mean, I think that, yeah, he's kind of just there. And the most exciting thing he does is get loud when he's talking. But I have no issues with him. I agree with you on Clint. But I can't do Kevin Harvick in the booth. I really can't. I mean, he showed it tonight by literally sitting there talking up and beefing up Cole Custer right before Cole Custer does the exact thing he said that he doesn't do. And how he's aggressive, but he's a good driver. And twice tonight wrecked the field.
So, Atlanta's coming up next week. Another drafting track. However, I do think there's a little more skill involved in Atlanta because you can get loose. And I mean really loose. At Daytona, they can run flat out around there. Even in the draft, they can run flat out. Atlanta, it is slick. I mean, they are losing their rear end at 185 miles an hour. You have to drive your car. Daytona, you don't necessarily have to drive it all that much. You can kind of just ride. Atlanta, you got to be on your toes the whole time. So that's going to be interesting. Adjustments are going to come into play. Who's got a good handling car? So it's a good step.
For a couple of people who love NASCAR, we really talked them down tonight.
Yeah, well,